Imagine this scenario. You were right, you played the long game. You bought physical silver when it was cheap. Suddenly, the crisis hits, the dollar collapses. Silver explodes to $200 an ounce. You are sitting on a fortune. You decide it's finally time to sell and buy your dream house. You walk into the dealer, you hand over the metal, and you expect a check for $100,000. But the check is only for $20,000. Why? Because that morning, Congress passed a Windfall Profits Tax. They declared that precious metals are a non-productive asset and that the massive gains you made due to inflation are unearned income. They didn't ban silver. They didn't seize it. They just slapped an 80% tax on the sale. They let you keep the rock, but they seized the value. This is what I call Scenario B. It is the silent confiscation. But there are two other scenarios that are even worse. Scenarios where you don't just lose the profit, you lose the metal entirely without anyone ever knocking on your door. And the laws to do it are already on the books. To understand how they will trap you, you have to watch this video to the very end. Because if you don't know the playbook, you are already the victim. If you want to know the answer before the knock on the door comes, you need to be part of this intelligence network. We are tracking the historical patterns that predict the next financial reset. Make sure you are subscribed to the channel right now, because the algorithm will not show you this warning when the crisis actually begins. Join us and let's open the file. In the financial world, safety is an illusion we tell ourselves to sleep at night. We think, I live in a democracy, my property is mine. The rules are written in stone, but history shows us that the rules are written in sand. And when the tide comes in, the sand washes away. Imagine it is April 5th, 1933. You are sitting at your kitchen table. You have played by the rules. You worked hard. You saved your money. You didn't trust the banks, which were collapsing left and right, so you did the prudent thing. You converted your savings into gold coins. You held the only form of wealth that has never gone to zero in 5,000 years. Then you open the morning newspaper and you realize that overnight, you have become a criminal. Executive Order 6102, with the stroke of a pen, President Franklin D. Roosevelt has just made it illegal for an American citizen to own monetary gold. You read the fine print, hoping for a loophole. There is none. You have 25 days. If you do not turn your gold into the Federal Reserve in exchange for paper dollars, you face a $10,000 fine that is nearly $250,000 in today's purchasing power, and worse, 10 years in federal prison. So you do what they say, you stand in line at the bank. You hand over your generational wealth, the heavy gold coins that represented your family's security. And in return, they hand you a stack of paper bills. Most people think this is ancient history. They think that was the Great Depression. It was an emergency. It could never happen again. They are wrong. The government has already proven they can take your assets. They have proven they will change the rules when the system is threatened. The only question remains, what will they take next? Today, we are going to investigate why silver is the next target. We are going to look at the legal machinery that is already in place to seize it. And we are going to look at why, this time, they won't come knocking on your door. They will steal it without you ever seeing their face. This is the story of the next confiscation. To understand if your silver is safe, you first have to understand why they took the gold in 1933. They didn't take it because they liked shiny rocks. They didn't take it because they wanted to fill a vault like a dragon in a fairy tale. They took it because they were trapped. The United States government had printed too much paper money. The debt was spiraling out of control. They needed to inflate the currency to pay off their debts to devalue the dollar, so the debt became cheaper to service. But the gold standard was stopping them. As long as you, the citizen, could walk into a bank and trade a $20 bill for an ounce of gold, the government was in a straitjacket. They couldn't print unlimited money because the gold supply was limited. If they printed too much, everyone would rush to the bank to claim the gold, and the treasury would be empty. So they cut the knot, they confiscated the gold. Once the gold was safely in government vaults, they pulled the lever. They took it from you at $20.67 an ounce. Then, almost immediately, they declared it was worth $35 an ounce. In a single instant, they stole 69% of your purchasing power. They devalued your savings to bail out their mistakes. It was the greatest wealth transfer in American history, and it was done entirely legally under the guise of national emergency. Now, look at today. Look at the debt clock. It is spinning so fast it is a blur. The government is trapped again. The debt is vertical. The currency is losing value every single day. The system is desperate, but this time, gold isn't the only problem. The new problem is strategic. And the metal they need isn't just money, it's fuel. In 1933, gold was money. If you controlled the gold, you controlled the economy. But in 2026, silver is something far more dangerous. It is a strategic material. You cannot build a modern economy without it. You cannot build a Tomahawk missile without silver contacts. You cannot build a satellite without silver wiring. You cannot build the solar panels that power the green transition without silver paste. Gold is a luxury. Silver is a necessity. This brings us to a piece of history that most textbooks conveniently leave out. During World War II, the US government didn't just seize gold, they seized silver. During the Manhattan Project, the secret race to build the atomic bomb, the scientists ran into a problem. They needed massive electromagnets to enrich uranium at the Oak Ridge facility. These magnets were colossal, requiring thousands of tons of wire. But copper, the usual metal for wiring, was in short supply. It was all being used for shell casings and communication lines on the front lines in Europe and the Pacific. So the War Department went to the US Treasury. They said, "We need your silver." They didn't ask nicely. They withdrew 14,700 tons of silver bullion from the Treasury vaults. They melted down the coins and bars that backed the currency and turned them into wire for the Calatrons at Oak Ridge. This wasn't a commercial transaction. It was a requisition. The silver that backed the dollar was stripped out and turned into the machinery of war. Think about that precedent. When national security is on the line, your property rights do not exist. When the government decides that a metal is critical to the survival of the state, whether for an atomic bomb in 1942 or a green energy grid in 2026, they will take it. And right now, we are entering a new Cold War. The West is running out of the very metal it needs to fight it. The supply deficit is real, the mines are empty. And the government is looking at the private stockpiles with hungry eyes. The financial media exists to keep you calm, to keep you invested in the paper system until the very last moment. They will tell you that silver is just a commodity, that the market is free, that your ETF shares are safe. They are lying to you. I am building a dossier on the next phase of this reset. I am tracking the legislative moves that signal a freeze is coming. If you want to see the data before the rest of the market wakes up, you need to be paying attention to what we are discussing here. Now, let's look at how they will take it this time, because they won't come to your house. The skeptics will say they can't seize silver. There's too much of it, it's too widely distributed. They can't go door to door searching basements. You are thinking like it's 1933. You are imagining federal agents in trench coats knocking on doors. That is inefficient. That is messy. In the digital age, confiscation is silent. It is keystrokes. It is algorithms. Here is scenario the ETF nationalization. Millions of people believe they own silver because they bought shares in an ETF like SLV or a digital silver trust. They see the number on their screen. They feel safe. They are not safe. They do not own silver. They own a claim check on a vault that is controlled by a custodian bank, usually JP Morgan or HSBC. If the Department of Defense decides they need silver for the war effort, they will not issue an executive order to you, the retail investor. They will issue an order to the vaults. They will cite the Defense Production Act. They will settle your contract in cash. You will wake up one morning and your ETF shares will be gone. In their place will be a cash deposit, calculated at yesterday's closing price. The government will thank you for your patriotism. You will have your dollars that are rapidly losing value, but the metal will be gone. It will be moved from the commercial side of the vault to the strategic side. This is not a conspiracy theory. Read the prospectus of any major silver ETF. There are clauses that specifically allow for cash settlement in the event of a shortage or regulatory change. You signed the contract, you just didn't read it. Then there is Scenario C, the 1980 playbook. During the Hunt brothers' silver squeeze in 1980, the regulators didn't ban silver. They just changed the liquidation rules. They made it liquidation only. You could sell, but you couldn't buy. Imagine a strategic hoarding ban. The government declares a critical shortage. They make it illegal for dealers to sell bullion to the public. You can keep what you have, but the market is frozen. And when you finally need to sell, there is only one legal beer allowed, the US government. And they set the price. Why is this threat real right now? Why are we discussing this in 2026 and not 10 years ago? Because the US government is naked. In 1940, the US held billions of ounces of silver in strategic stockpiles. We had a mountain of silver. We could fight a war, electrify a nation, and mint coins without blinking. Today, that number is effectively zero. They sold it all. Over the last few decades, they auctioned off the strategic stockpile to suppress the price and balance the budget. They emptied the cupboard. At the exact moment that modern warfare and modern energy are becoming 100% dependent on silver, the United States has none left. China knows this. Russia knows this. They are hoarding, they are banning exports. On January 1st, 2026, the export controls in the East tightened. The flow of metal has stopped. When the shortage hits, when Raytheon calls the president and says, "We can't build guidance systems for the Navy," or when the energy sector says, "We can't finish the solar grid," do you think the president will respect your coin collection? Do you think they will care about your rights? History shows that when a government faces an existential crisis, it turns on its own citizens. It cannibalizes the wealth of the people to preserve the state. They did it with gold in 33. They did it with silver in 42. The precedent is there. The motive is there. The shortage is there. So how do you protect yourself if they can seize the ETFs, and they can tax the sales, and they can freeze the dealers? What is left? The answer is the same as it was in 1933. Anonymity. When FDR issued Executive Order 6102, not everyone complied. Many people didn't turn in their gold. They buried it. They hid it. And the government couldn't do a thing about it because there was no digital record of who owned what. It was a cash society. Today, We live in a surveillance state. Everything is tracked. But physical precious metals purchased with cash, held in your own possession, are one of the last bastions of financial privacy. If you hold physical metal outside the banking system, outside the ETFs, you are invisible. You are the ghost in the machine. If you don't hold it, you don't own it. That isn't just a catchy slogan for coin collectors. It is a legal defense strategy. It is the only way to ensure that when the order comes down, your wealth remains yours. The rules are changing. The era of free markets is ending. The era of resource control is beginning. Make sure your wealth is off the grid, out of the vault, and in your hands.